All right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
But yeah, so
give us
I'll
the backstory a
continue.
little bit, Andy, just in case people aren't up on it.
Yeah, yeah. So Jacob found this old book of country tunes in like a garage sale, like like a refuse pile or whatever you could call it, where like people are like done with the garage sale.
Mm.
They're not trying to make any money more. They're just like, well, let's just throw the stuff out.
Mm.
And so Jacob found that in a box like in Madison where he was living at the time. And then brought the tunes to Chet and I, and we started reading through them and kind of like trying to play them in a way that
What
felt
was that?
like, what was that? Oh,
I think
um,
Jacob's just interacting over there.
but
I was just talking to someone. Sorry, I feel
oh,
bad. Oh, yeah.
It's okay, Jacob.
so anyways, yeah, we worked through those and kind of like started playing them in a like pretty experimental way. Almost I mean, I guess we had intentions of performing, but I think it started out without any like super direct intention just because it was during the pandemic. So I think
Ah,
there wasn't really a big like we're going to perform this next week. It was kind of like, well, we want to play music together. We haven't gotten to play very much, and this was kind of a fun thing to kind of
mm,
come together around, almost like how you would normally come around like standards or something like that.
yeah.
This just felt like maybe a little bit easier to find something in them because with standards they've already been abstracted so many times
Yeah.
that abstracting them more can sometimes you're already I mean it's like if you just think about like I like to think about like if you're like mixing paints together
Mm.
you can start swirling them and they still have like their own color and they're swirling together but then at a certain point it just turns brown. To
That's
me,
true.
that's kind of like what standards feels like. It's like it's not like you can really abstract them more than they've already been abstracted without it just turning brown.
Mm, mm,
So it's like I think we really liked having something that was really simple and undisturbed to abstract.
mm.
And I think that really helped us to find our sound as a group was that we didn't have such a predetermined background that was affecting how we could play the music. We actually did a clinic up at University of Wisconsin,
Hmm.
and the students were like, "Oh, could you like show us how to like do this to a standard?" And we were like, "I guess we could try." And we were kind of just like, we started playing. We're like, "There's really nothing we can do to this." It's like
Yeah.
it's so it's so like stiff in our minds, I
Yeah.
guess. So the first record,
Overdetermined, one might say.
yeah. So the first record, we kind of explored all that stuff, and then just through having recorded it and wanting to move on, we started to focus more on just like original materials that then built off of the sort of like formats that we had maybe kind of discovered in the first record, if that makes sense, like
Yeah.
ways of playing together and that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it feels very much like an extension of the original, which is quite a trick. I mean, there were no original compositions on the first one, right? It was all out of that book. It was
It's a
all.
lot of that book, yeah.
Yeah, except for one or two tracks. The final track,
Oh, yeah.
It's a Blue World is like a four freshmen thing,
Oh, okay.
which is like a doo-wop group or like a
Yeah. I'm trying
acapella.
to remember who originally wrote it, but we borrowed heavily from that doo-wop arrangement for the
Cool.
voicing and the structure
Yeah.
of our version of that. But yeah, that was the one thing that wasn't from the book. And then on this record, it's sort of echoed by we have the one thing that's not an original song, which is the Skriaben, which also closes it out,
Yeah.
which is sort of like the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to get to that, but I didn't know that it's a prelude, right? From a
Mhm.
big set of preludes. Yeah, and I listened to Mikhail Pletnev version as well, but that's an amazing piece, and it's interesting. Okay, well, since we're on this, we might as well do it. I mean, it's just I don't know if you've this was your pick, is that correct, Andy?
Yeah.
And you arranged it. I know you've been like diving into the piano literature in various places over the last few
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
Um, I wondered if you guys had ever heard this Russian pianist Sofronitsky. He's a famous interpreter of Scriabin in particular. Okay, this I don't know, this won't go in the interview, but I'm recommending it to you because
Yeah.
his time feel. Sofronitsky is like it's crazy and it feels super modern, kind of. I mean, it feels like these kind of out of focus grooves that happen in kind of free settings and things like this.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's
you should check it
cool.
out. It's
Oh, yeah.
um, okay, but back to the story. So, I mean, your point about the standards is really interesting one, Andy. And I mean, just to clarify this, so this book that y'all found, it was like some earlier version of a kind of coherent set of music for a popular audience, right? I mean, it seems to have been marketed to those who are interested in some kind of, it's for hillbillies. Was that what it said? Or from,
Well,
is that in the
it was
title? I
a,
can't remember.
it was a weird book because I think basically it's like it was one of many of these kinds of books of music to play at home on your piano,
Yeah,
like sort of like in a pre like people having record players at home. This is
right.
just for, having something to be able to play and like entertain your friends and family or whatever. So there were like ukulele tabs in there for the different chords, but also is written out kind of clearly for like a piano player. Um, but what was weird is like we tried to do some digging into the songs themselves because like we couldn't find any recordings of any of these tunes.
Huh.
So it's like, what is the real history of any of this music?
Huh.
The more digging that we did, it was like most likely like all this stuff was written by this fiddle player who was like kind of a fixture in this like radio scene. Like I forget where exactly it was, but he he would basically perform on the radio very regularly. So like um, these songs, they weren't like old. It wasn't like they're old time tunes. There wasn't really like a history to them. They were kind of like supposed to have a lot of the qualities of that music and like resemble that enough to like pass as being old time like hillbilly tunes, but they didn't
Wow.
really come from that repertoire.
Huh.
So in that way too, it kind of like gave us this like I think poetic license to like
Yeah.
go wherever direction with this
Yeah.
stuff because it was so I don't know like far away from being part of like a history, like a musical history or like some
Right.
kind of like idiomatic place.
Sure.
So
Or
yeah,
some tradition that you really ought to uncover and
yeah, exactly. It didn't feel like we had to like pay homage to like anybody who came before because it was like we don't even know anything about what came before, like where
yeah,
this came
yeah.
from exactly. So it felt like we could kind of do whatever we wanted arrangement wise. And so, I mean, something too, kind of jumping off of what Andy said about like we started playing this music. We got together, I think, kind of like near the end of 2020 at first to like try playing some of this stuff. Um, that was like our first time meeting up. And then we probably met about like half a dozen times before we played our first gig. So we got to like develop what we were doing for a while before we even like got out there and performed. And then played like a handful of shows before we had any ideas about recording the stuff too. So it was nice. We were able to like kind of simmer and like
Yeah.
develop some of these ideas, especially the time feel stuff. I think became like a central part of what we were doing that felt sort of unique.
Can you
Um,
say can you say some more about that?
the time stuff.
Yeah, or maybe can we look on like are there examples of this in the new record? I mean, if we want to start talking about some of those tracks.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Ask Around
Yeah,
comes to
yeah,
mind
yeah.
for sure, where it's like they're almost like three independent
Yeah.
grooves happening, and they're like locking together at points, and then they're fraying apart in other points.
Hmm.
And like that sort of feeling, I think it's felt really exciting to all of us.
Yeah.
There's definitely a handful of moments on the record that feel that way. Um, but I think with this record, more so than the last one, there's also some more like straightforward moments too.
Hmm.
And like having those right up against each other feels almost like it heightens or like it
Yeah.
makes there's this contrast that feels really like jarring in a way.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love
It's
it. I'm
fun
trying
to
to think
lean
of the one
into.
that's most clear to me. I think maybe Holly to Pianta. I was just listening to it this morning.
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
Is that
Well,
yeah?
and it's
Because there's
cool
like
too
there's
because
no break on the record like at all. It's just like boom.
yeah. We were really purposeful about how the sequencing of the record works and how they moves from track to track. And uh yeah, I think the cool thing too about the record is like the sequencing sometimes it's like there's these jarring aspects, but then there's like connective things between. So, it's like Holly to Pianta, it's like those are very different um time wise and form wise. Like Holly's much more abstract how it works, like for the improvisation section. And then you get into Holly and it's this really tight, like calypso arrangement that we played the same way every time. It's like it's almost not, it's like it has some like the
Yeah,
guitar
that's what you
solo
mean.
and drum solo are improvised, but it's like purposely a like a radio edit type feel where it's like
Yeah.
one chorus, half a chorus right back into the bridge like type thing. But then sonically they're really connected in terms of like I think like the tone of them. They're both a little like uh I don't really know the word for it. Maybe like a little tongue in cheek in a way or like a little bit sardonic or something.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think we've liked how all the new music kind of ended up fitting together pretty like effortlessly. We didn't conceive of that or like attempt to do that necessarily, but it just kind of it happened in a really cool way where it just worked out, you know. So
Well, I mean, yeah. So the irony, you guys know that I was an English professor for like all these years. Maybe you don't know that.
yeah.
But we English professors tend to be addicted to irony and thinking about it, just. But it's in music. It always seems like it's a harder thing because it's just because I mean, I guess if you define irony in language, there are, words tend to have some kind of agreed on meanings as a starting point. And then if things start to flip into their opposites or become other things or whatever, you can sort of trace that like, okay, well, here's this thing and then there's this other thing. With music, I mean, that's sort of true, but not in the same way as other. I mean, music, of course, is a language, but just not in the same way. So, okay, I'm all of this will be edited out. Basically, everything I say in these interviews goes. But I do want to talk about this a little bit more. I mean, the introductory organ piece, Andy, that's you playing, right? Uh,
Yep.
so is that like i- is that meant to be like sort of tongue in cheek? Like,
Actually, that piece is extremely sincere. Seriously, like it's uh it's a piece that I wrote. We had I think Jacob was the one that had the idea for an opening organ piece because we kind of went into the recording session like we wanted to be open to overdubs and the studio had an organ.
oh, okay.
And
What kind of organ
so
is it?
uh it's not a nice one. It's like one of those kind of like at-home organs with the
Yeah,
octave of pedals and like the all the like little like flip knobs for like the different like manuals or whatever.
yeah,
No drawbars or anything like that.
yeah, yeah.
Like um and Yeah, the song, we I was kind of tasked with writing an organ piece when we went back in to retrack some, or not retrack, reamp some guitar stuff where we were like not happy with the tone. We we had like a DI signal to kind of run back through amps and like get a different sound for different things where it like,
Mhm.
we maybe just rushed into something recording wise. And so I knew I needed to write something. I think the original idea was that I was going to find a Bach chorale to like kind of remix or use as like a start point for something. Like we wanted it to be like a chorale at the beginning. And then that just kind of just happened. And I felt like it kind of like reminded me of the feeling of my relationship of just being this like cozy, like building a home together type feeling, which is where the title comes from. And it's got like a lot of different like feelings in it. It's like kind of rootsy and like grounded, and there's also kind of like a sad like yearning to it or something that I think is like, you know, very true to how it feels to like love someone and like work through things together, and that's so it's very sincere, but I think the organ and like the sound of it kind of comes off in this like weird way where it almost like juxtaposes all that against the title, which then feels like about like some weird alien invasion or something, it's yeah, so
Well, I remember recording this or being in the studio with you when this was happening, and we were laughing, describing it as kind of feeling like sad clown music a little bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, like, I think, I mean, a lot of this record to me feels like trying to square the circle, or like this feeling of sincerity and irony, sort of like how those things interact with each other. That was like sort of there on the first record too. I mean, like there was a song that didn't make it onto that record called "Rock Me to Sleep in the Rockies." That was like
Yeah,
such a ridiculous tune, and we were playing it in this like really chaotic, like free jazz sort of style where we were just playing the melody continuously with no breaks, and it just was completely ridiculous, and we would play it and be laughing while
yeah,
playing it, you know.
yeah,
There's some songs that kind of like feel like that still, like in that music, and then ones that felt like very like serious and heavy, you know. um, but I don't know. I mean, speaking for myself, I love the idea of like those things coexisting on the same record,
yeah.
and you don't really know like how to feel. I like when I'm absorbing a piece of art and I feel kind of confused about like the tone shifting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also just mirrors our connection as three people is like we're all really serious about music and we like take it so seriously and like invest ourselves into it so much, but at the same time, we like to goof around and have fun. We're not like, I don't know. I mean, it's not something we're like being reactive about, like where we're like, oh, we don't want to be super serious. It's just we can't help but laugh and have fun when we're making music together. There's always just an element of like humor that comes in just naturally because of the chemistry we have as like a group of friends.
Sure, sure. But and also, I mean, play, right? Is
Yeah.
center of these things, however, of this phenomenon or whatever this thing is, this music thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's absent. That's a real problem. So, you know, um, yeah, well, I love the emotional contour to it, and it doesn't feel confusing to me at all, actually. It feels very, I mean, I don't know. I don't, I knew exactly, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying about this seriousness. I mean, it's a beautiful piece, that first one, Let's Make the Earth Our Home, but I also get the clown thing, and I think that yeah, I mean, it sort of sets the stage for things in this way that you know, that's going in two directions at once, or multiple directions at once for the listener. And I think that's a great kind of palate cleansing, or stage setting type thing. Then Interstate 80 gets rolling. Um, yeah, and then and I because I also feel like there's this set of we can talk about more other pieces too, but I think from Silhouette suddenly changes the mood of things. That's a Jacob piece. Is that right? Or am I getting that
Mhm.
wrong? Yeah.
Yep, that's one of Jacob's.
Yeah. That feels more serious, or it's like it's stirring darker emotions. And then I Promise to Never Smile Again goes yet farther. That's you, right, Andy? I love the title of that piece. For some reason that feels like that feels so Andy, and I don't know why exactly. But but yeah, I mean, then that kind of gets down to I mean, and there was some talk about like there being noirish, or something that's resonating with some tragic film score type stuff. I don't know. I can't quite place where I
Hmm.
if that's the connection in either one of those. I mean, both of them seem like they could possibly work in some kind of noir movie. Um, but
I
yeah,
mean, I think
then we can come back around to Starman Jr., which goes back into a different direction again. Um,
I I feel like on the record in general, there's a strong sense or dedication to like nostalgia or even kitsch. Like I feel like we talked about that a lot with wanting to like consider like the history of lots of different kinds of music in America and not be afraid about like differentiating between high or low or like, what's art music and what's not, and just trying to like kind of play all of it because we're influenced by all of it in different ways. Um, so I feel like on Silhouette, I feel like we tried to like lean into like like almost like a 70s rock groove or something like that, and just try to like go all the way to what I feel like the song needs and not really be concerned about if it, is if it feels like kitschy or tongue in cheek, because sometimes I just wanted to go there. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, and now we've got you on record. Good to see your face. Um, yeah. I'm looking at my
Yeah,
notes.
I definitely feel like the like I Promise Never to Smile Again is the most like noir like thing. And I think it also carries some of the like because this record doesn't have a lot of like kind of like the ballad rubato sort of stuff that we had on the first record. So I feel like that's kind of the one that like kind of brings that like slow kind of like we call it like melted feeling, like um and I actually wrote that maybe a few weeks or something before those like before the recording session as
Mhm.
something to kind of help like I like to think about it like all the songs like create like a web of like tension.
Mm.
And I felt like that was like there was like that piece was like missing from the web of tension
Mm.
of
Mm.
like the songs we had.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so I think like it felt like, well, this is like part of our tradition, this type of thing, and we don't have that kind of like and because for me I have like some form of synesthesia in a way. Like I see music as like having like color and shape. And so it's like I could see that like the colors and shapes that I kind of associate with some of the songs on the first record were not there in the second record.
Wow. So cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, just that I know, I feel like I've heard of like Dave Douglas using a similar kind of method when he's conceiving albums.
Mm.
I heard that from some like master class he gave that I was not present at, but which I heard about later. Um, but then you bring synesthesia into it. All right, Andy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say if you've ever like read about like Messiaen, like his talk of like how he views music and color, it's like that. It's so I don't have it like associated with pitch. It's more of like a it's more abstract.
Yeah, I don't know what Messiaen had to say about that. That's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
fascinating.
I can't remember where I read it. I think it was maybe in his like he has like a book that he wrote all about like his method of like creating music where he like talks about like all his crazy rhythm and limited transposition stuff. And I think it's pretty early on because I've never finished that book. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not ready for this yet. But it was like I think it was somewhere in towards the beginning he talks about his like synesthetic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then you play organ on that for the middle for the sort of improvisational section in the middle, right?
Mhm.
Was that played live or did you add it later? You added it afterward.
Yeah,
It was
all
an
all the
overdub.
organ is added after the fact.
It works
But we
very
kind of
well.
went in knowing that we were going to, we had sort of a map of a lot of the spots we were going to overdub, which there weren't many, but it was, yeah, that song, I think in a similar section where it gets kind of loose and another one of Andy's songs called The Last Time, there's also an organ moment. Um, and then in
Yeah.
Starman also, we had a little bit of organ at the
There's
very
other
end.
stuff going on in Starman, right? There's
Yeah, there's the programmed drums.
Yeah, which we knew we were going to do. We did that one to a
Yeah,
click for the sake of
oh,
being able to program
yeah.
it.
It's the only one that was to a click, and it was so weird after tracking all the other stuff, trying to like get into that, like suddenly having a metronome to
so
like
you wrote that one,
follow.
right, Chet? Tell us more about
Yeah,
that piece.
that piece. So I had written that one a while ago, and I think I originally had intended that one to be for I have like another band that both Jacob and Andy have been part of
Hmm.
also. It's like my songwriting project that's called Lucky Cloud. And I like sing and write the songs and everything. Um and I came up with that I didn't really have a structure, but I had like all these ideas of the sections of the song. Could never figure out words that felt right, and it felt like the guitar part was almost like too busy for there to be words.
Hmm.
And so it's like I had this idea, and I really liked it. I just didn't really have an outlet for it for a while, and then we were kind of getting together all this material for the new record, and it's like, well, maybe I'll bring this thing to Andy and Jacob and see how this goes. And it really took shape very quickly, and I was like, oh, this is like exactly the right thing. But I from the beginning kind of had the like programmed drums vibe in my head, and so that it's been a weird one. Like performing it live never feels like totally right because it's like we need to get like a SPD or something going on,
Yeah.
get like some of those textures or something. But yeah, I mean, we recorded to a click. I think we it was also one where we changed the structure a little bit. I was like, this feels like it was a little too long, so we took out like the from the way that we originally performed it, we like actually took out a couple chunks of the song to make it a little more concise. But yeah, then Andy helped with programming the drums. I think you were kind of just in like in Pro Tools, like placing the 808s and everything.
Oh yeah, I did the drums. I did it in Ableton. So I just like
In Ableton.
yeah, I just like pulled in the audio and then just kind of started like shaping the different parts and because we knew we were gonna do the drums, like do the electric drums, but we didn't go in recording knowing like what it would sound like or what it would be. It was just kind of like, okay, we'll like make sure, I was in my head like make sure I leave some space for that, whatever that's gonna be.
Yeah.
And
Totally. Yeah, and then I guess I overdubbed. There's like two different guitar layers on that one, which is sort of different from a lot of these others.
yeah, there's a
Um,
couple places actually where there's some like overdubbed guitar stuff too on
yeah,
some other spots, right?
I-80 has acoustic guitar
Oh, it does.
overdub.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like playing exactly the same part, but
yeah.
we just really like the combination of two of them.
Well, I was
Of like
noticing when I was listening on headphones, I noticed there's some places where there's like the stereo thing.
Yeah,
which is usually, is that overdub? But you can do that live too, can't you? Or maybe you can't. I
you
can't remember.
can you can kind of do like a
Yeah.
stereo sort of separation,
Right, right,
and
right.
if you have like two microphones on the
Yeah,
same amp. But that one, yeah, we did. I recorded an acoustic guitar plus the electric guitar. Um, and then, oh yeah, Ask Around. I did like a slide guitar thing on
yeah.
that.
I caught that. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Um, I think that's probably it. But yeah, like it's funny. I feel like we all, I mean, part of it doesn't really even feel like it was a challenge with this, but the dynamic of making this record, because it's all original music, it's like, I think, we each of us have really different um, compositional voices. And I would say, like, I looking at myself or like trying to have like some idea of my own voice, I feel like all of the compositions I brought to this one are probably the least improvisatory. They're like the most wrote out.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean that definitely includes Starman, which really like has pretty much no improvisation in it except for maybe like Andy's like semi drum solo kind of stuff at the end there.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
I kind of like that we have some moments of, I don't know, sort of like what Andy's saying about like kind of getting a sense of like the flow of the album and feeling like certain colors that are being called for. I feel like having some moments that are like a little bit more set in stone next to ones that are a little bit more um, improvisational, a little looser, that
Yep.
back and forth feels nice, or like it feels like a satisfying arc to me, and definitely went into like some of the planning of the sequencing of all the tracks too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that dynamic too. That's actually the first thing I was starting to write about when I was starting to write about this record was the um this kind of variety. It's like it's like it's hard to choose an adjective that doesn't seem to prejudice things in some way. And I go around in terms of, because it was interesting. I was coming off of this other record, which was so concentrated and so sort of in one mood, which at first seemed to me like, geez, we're just not going to do anything other than this. But now that I've lived with it a little bit longer, I'm like, okay, well, we're actually really digging into that one mood, and so that's a thing too. But I my personality or my interests or whatever is much more drawn toward having a lot of variety, if not extreme, eclecticism or whatever. And but I think there's, as with so many things, there's good reasons and maybe less good reasons to do it. I think you guys are doing it for all the right reasons. I feel like sometimes it's great to sort of provide different ways in for listeners. I mean, I don't think that's why you're doing it this way, but I know it could just play out that way, right? That people find different their own traditions or whatever is in their background. They find different things to connect to and then are drawn maybe into the farther, to the way the narrative kind of continues with your music. And sometimes I also feel like it's like a kind of clearing the way. I mean, I guess another way to describe the standards thing, that there's the sort of problem of overdetermination. That's kind of a fancy literary critical term for it, but cliche is another kind of issue, right? It's just like it's all been done
Mhm.
on this thing. It's like you can't say anything authentic because it feels like someone else's words. And I
Mhm.
feel like the mixing of traditions and genres and the way you're doing is another it's another kind of safeguard against that, right? It's because these things haven't been put together before, or like not this way. So it's like their energies kind of diffuse each other's inauthenticity, maybe. I don't know. That's a working working theory. All right, I'll probably edit all this out too.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's really accurate.
oh, go ahead, Chet. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I feel like that's hitting the nail on the head to me, and I feel like also, I mean, something that Andy touched on earlier too is like we're all kind of coming from, or maybe it was Jacob that said this, but like we all want to like do justice to like all of this music that we've been influenced by, which includes like some really like I don't know, certain things that don't feel as serious as other things, or like all these different traditions that don't necessarily like line up super neatly into like one genre category. And it's funny, like to get to this point with this. I mean, putting out this album, I think one of the things that's been challenging is like, how do we communicate this to somebody who hasn't heard it yet, or who doesn't necessarily know about this band? Because it's like, it's not really a jazz record. It's not really like a rock record either. It doesn't really fit in those categories, which is like a marketing problem, but I think it's also like a strength of the record, something I feel like I think that we all feel like artistically really proud of, is that it kind of sits in some like weird other world somewhere in between that feels like authentic to like all of our experiences as musicians.
And it also it's not super experimental, but it's also not experimental. I feel like that's one thing that is hard to explain to people, where it's like in a way the record really isn't experimental at all, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing is really in a way like derived from previous musics that we have loved, you know. But hopefully we were able to blend it all together in a way that's interesting, and that is experimental, because that mix in the way of mixing everything together is feels like exploring something that is unique to us as a trio. But yeah, I definitely, especially moving out here on the West Coast and no one knows about Alta Vista. And they're like, "Oh, what's your band Alta Vista?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's like a country band. It's also like does free jazz," and it's hard to explain.
It's kind of it's kind of a California title, if you don't mind my saying, or at least it. I mean, just obviously being in Spanish, but I don't know. That's yeah, probably I
But
was.
it's also the name of a defunct search engine. Do you
Oh
remember Alta
yeah, right.
Vista?
Of course. No, I
That's
remember.
yeah.
I seem to remember librarians. This must have been like the late 90s or
Oh, sure. Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, you
Mm.
should do Alta Vista instead of Google. It's better. I remember somebody saying that to me.
Right, right. Yeah.
That was kind
I,
of how
I,
we came up with that name, right? Or if somebody's had the idea with that first, we were like, oh, the Yahoo era like search engine. It kind of felt right for this like weird post-internet type of thing. I
Got
don't
it.
know.
Got it.
Yeah, I think I'd love to like I feel like my perspective on music has become so based in like really believing in like postmodernism in terms of just like it being an authentic experience to what it is to be someone who, grew up in the 2000s and like had the experience we had. I've had the great fortune of seeing some masters of like jazz play, for example. But it's like when we were talking earlier about you know, not feeling connected to this music, like being like, oh, it's just like some random stuff that was like made for the radio, and like we don't feel like beholden to it. It is, you know, in a way, the experience of growing up now and being connected to a lot of old music is kind of this weird in between where if I'm really being honest about my authentic experience, I'm not authentically connected to bebop, even though it's something I really connect to, but I can't pretend that my connection to it is authentic and really leads back through like a tradition. It's like, I grew up in the suburbs and like discovered this music on the internet and like
Yeah.
got fell in love with it
Mhm.
in private in a way. It's like I was lucky to have two friends that were also into it, but I think it's just an honest it's hard for me. Authenticity is really important, and um I think I think we all grew up in a very postmodern like world, and so to me, and then when you think about like exploring music and like there's kind of this myth of Miles invented cool jazz and then he invented modal jazz and then blah blah. It's like there's all this invention that happened in the 20th century. And I think a lot of people in music, especially experimental music, get really attached to that like narrative and they want to be a part of that narrative. But the reality is like I think some of the like musical exploration that happens can end up feeling really unmusical because so much ground has already been covered in the discovery of music. I mean, if you think about it, a new genre hasn't really been fully invented for probably 40 years. I feel like the last like new genre was like basically like hip hop and then everything else has just been amalgamations of things that have already come before. It's very postmodern in how things are like created now. Like there isn't some new thing that really happens. It's all combinations of old things, which I guess you could say is true of everything that came in that lineage of 20th century music, but it's not the same because there's no like direct line anymore. It's almost
Yeah.
like there was this direct line and then it just went, and everything expanded outward rather than forward. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is consciously accepting that outward expansion and also music is so complicated. It's like, the image I'm creating is two-dimensional, but the actual, music itself is like infinitely dimensional. You know what I mean? Like there's no way to even you couldn't start mapping it in 3D. You would need like 10 dimensions to map all the different aspects of music and all the spectrums that you can be on and be playing with. And so to me, like what is really special is to think about that and not be like, oh, well, I'm going to make the next thing that's never been made, but more like, okay, I'm going to use all these things that have been already expanded and opened for me and find my own authentic position in this like infinite web or an authentic position of this music. Like this band is like collectively our three identities working together to find some authentic truth between the three of us. And yeah, anyways.
Great. Um, okay, look, I have a couple more topics slash questions. Um, um, okay, so and so I mean, I kind of a theme that I'm developing on the Substack is is just thinking about the Chicago scene, and you just said there's infinite dimensions. So, I mean, to music in general, of course, but I mean, the crossing of that there are these. Um, I feel like, well, I mean, certainly for me, I don't even live in Chicago full time anymore, but having been in the city and being exposed to the different genres or different, places where music is played and people playing them and watching these places mix was, part of what kind of inspired me to start a new existence as a musician. And it seems like you guys are kind of coming together from some of those, worlds that cross things and overlap in different ways. So maybe that's asking you a little bit more about outside of your just your experiences as three people, just sort of where you sort of feel like you've come from and how those worlds are interacting with the group. That's one possible question. Another
Mhm.
totally different question is just I think that this record sounds fantastic, and I've just been noticed. I mean, I've this also I can't attribute this to Chicago generally, but I mean I kind of want to. I mean I feel like I'm who mixed this record? Was this international anthem thing? Maybe we can sort of talk a little bit more about that. I mean, and just to zero in on things that I'm noticing virtues here. I mean, Chet, you have this like kind of epic stadium-sized guitar sound at times. Not always, but and Jacob plays acoustic bass, I think, on the whole record, right?
Mhm.
And so like right there, it's like kind of I mean that this is a problem which is not necessarily going to be solved, right? For these sounds to feel great together, which they do the whole time, you know. And then also the drums fitting into this. I just feel like it's rather technical, but I mean the way that you've solved having the record sound consistent and like you're all in a space together while covering this much
Mhm.
territory, you know, while having instruments that sound this different is kind of miraculous. And yeah, why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Well, we definitely owe a lot to our friend Seth Angle, who recorded the record. Um, we
That
we we recorded with him at his studio called Olmsted in like Humboldt Park, basically.
Hmm.
Um, and he's a phenomenal recording engineer. And he had me and Andy in the same kind of live room, my guitar in like an ISO booth, and then Jacob was also kind of isolated.
Hmm.
Um, but we all had like sight lines, so was able to we were able to still communicate pretty clearly, which is like, I mean, being able to look at each other while we're playing this stuff is like pretty vital
Hmm.
to being able to pull it off. Um, but Andy's the one who mixed the record, and I mean, that was like this is the first record that he's mixed.
Hmm.
We had like a couple. We had some help from. I mean, Max and Jason, our friends, who have done a good amount of mixing, um,
Yeah,
helped
they
like.
gave us some extremely crucial notes about like what to. I had kind of gotten the album to a certain place, and we were like, it's just there's something about it where it's like feeling like we couldn't put our finger on what was wrong with it, and they kind of just immediately put their finger on it.
Hmm.
And then also, Chet came in with me on 2 or 3 separate days, and we worked together to really get the guitar tone where Chet wanted, and like, um, so yeah, it was like it definitely was a group effort. And also, I was living with Seth at the time, who is a professional, full-time mixing,
Yeah.
mastering, recording engineer. So I was able to get a lot of advice from him, and I was working on his setup in
Hmm.
our apartment that we were living in. Um, so it was really helpful because I had access to a treated room with $3,000 studio monitors. Like it was like I don't know how I'll be able to reproduce that now that I'm not living with him. My plan and goal is to always be mixing everything that I'm involved in at this point,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
as almost like a philosophical and monetary viewpoint.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, if we think of like the history of recorded music, it's like the thing that defines it is the limitations of the time. So, things from the 40s or even earlier, it's like they had one mic in the room in like the 20s, and it was like, okay, put the drums really far away from the mic so they don't pick it up
Right.
as much. It's like and I think one of the defining things of our time is the lack of funding for the arts
Yeah.
and for music. And I think rather than viewing that as like a problem, I think it's actually kind of more beautiful to view it as like a creative limitation of like you can mix things on your own now. It's not going to be as good,
Mhm.
but that will be its own like sound signature on music. And I really believe in the quote, there's no bad mix of good music, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
So yeah.
It's true, but the thing is, a really good mix. It's not a bad thing to have, you
Yeah,
know.
well,
It
I
just means
wouldn't
it's
say
going to
these
strike
mixes are
people.
like a really good mix. They're passable. Like I was just listening to it
Stop it, Andy.
yesterday and I was
They're
like,
so good. I think
anyways,
Andy completely crushed the mixes. I'm super picky about my bass sound, as most upright bass players are. And both Seth and Andy just did an amazing job, like carrying like a really natural, like organic sound throughout the record, despite all the craziness that happens at points with Chet's guitar and overdubs and stuff. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, and I also feel like if we had gotten someone else to mix it, it would have ended up completely different. There's lots of things with overdubs I think that would have probably not happened. And And just sonically, it probably would have just maybe a little bit. It would have fallen a little bit short of like what our vision was as a trio. I think having Andy mix it like in-house, so to speak, enabled us to just have so much flexibility and such a deep artistic say in how we wanted things to sound. So definitely a crucial element to the finished project.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Cool.
what was your previous question, Paul? I can't remember what you.
Oh, it was more diffuse. It was just talking about I mean, the Chicago scene. I don't know how to.
Oh,
It's
right, right, right.
blah blah blah. I don't know.
Yeah.
If anything comes to mind, you can say it. But uh,
Oh, 100%.
Well,
okay.
Chicago is the best music scene on earth, and it has changed every music scene. It has actually, in my opinion, the Chicago sound, the Chicago thing, has revived creativity, true creativity in jazz across the world, for real. Like, if you look at LA, the previous things that were happening in LA before Jeff Parker moved there were so, in my opinion, vapid. And he's brought a depth and a belief in like restraint and like creativity that is like I think repairing a lot of things that social media has damaged.
Huh.
Um, Mackay McCraven's music has done the same thing. I mean, if you look at his approach to beat-oriented, creative, improvised music,
Hmm.
it has created a wave in the world that has salvaged it from maybe some of the like Grammy award winning um, hip hop jazz that has like that I think started somewhere really beautiful and then got influenced by money. And like that's the thing that Chicago has to offer is that it takes money out of the equation because there is none. And that's something Jeff Parker has actually talked about too.
Really, he has. Oh, I've never
Yeah,
heard him speak
in
about that.
interviews. Yeah, he's talked about that like that's one of the things that has made Chicago so powerful.
Mhm.
Huh.
I mean,
That's so deep, Andy.
not to mention the AACM, like I mean
Mhm.
that
Sure.
has like
That.
we
Yeah.
go back to there, that fucking did the same thing
Yeah.
to improvise music, anyways.
Mhm.
I just yeah, I feel like that's a really interesting thing to point out because moving out here to LA, it is kind of just a totally different vibe because a lot of people are making money, like they're touring or they're like a big time producer or something or a film composer and they like actually make money. Whereas in Chicago, most of the people making money are people who are playing in wedding bands or like, you know, get a teaching gig or something like that. Obviously there's always exceptions. But I think it does totally affect the music. And yeah, and I feel like Alta Vista definitely is in a tradition in Chicago music of blending. I think it goes all the way back to Sun Ra actually,
Hmm.
because he was making like crazy jazz music while also writing essentially pop music of his day,
Mhm.
you know, like with doo-wop recordings and stuff like that. So, I feel like Alta Vista does carry that on because we're deeply connected to a variety of scenes in Chicago, the improvised music community, the indie rock community, the jazz community, um, which are sometimes, totally separate entities. And I feel like we kind of provide like points of, connection, you know, between like that whole network. But that's definitely like, yeah, within a tradition. Like I feel like I mean, think about labels like Thrill Jockey or something like that. It's Jeff Parker, Tortoise, right? It's like this has always been happening in Chicago, so we're
Yeah,
part
I
of
know one
that.
of Chet's big influences like Sam Prekop for a
Hmm.
lot of this sort of stuff that we do in Alta Vista.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the music that was coming out of the city in the 90s is like very informative to me. Like, I mean, in the music that I write outside of this band, but then I think also for all of us and inside of this band, I mean, I feel really inspired by like the music that like John McIntyre and like Jim O'Rourke, like they were part of all this like really heady experimental music, and then also like truly like pop music.
Hmm.
I mean, like, I don't know, it's Stereo Lab and Sonic Youth and stuff that's like on this kind of like rock music spectrum. And then like some of the stuff like is a great example. It kind of crosses a lot of
Yeah.
um, it covers a lot of bases. Like it's like it lives in this jazz tradition, but also like has elements of like dance music and rock music. To me, like something that is so uniquely Chicago is that like people don't really feel like they have to work within one genre here, and in fact, like all of the most like exciting music to me, I think, is like from people of all these different scenes in Chicago working together to make something unique. Um, I feel like that's definitely a big through line for us with what we're trying to do in this band. I mean, like most of the music that I play, like outside of this group, I definitely play in like some more experimental and kind of jazz adjacent stuff, but for the most part, I play with a lot of songwriters and like stuff that is relatively like straightforward and in that sort of sense. And then like I think Jakob is probably the most on the other side, like
Hmm.
really playing. I mean, at least when we were all living in Chicago at the same time,
Yeah.
seemed to be playing with a lot more people in like the free jazz improvised music world. Um, and then this project has, I think, combined a lot of those things because it's like I love free jazz music. I know Jakob loves indie rock music, and like I don't know, and then Andy too. Like, I mean, I feel like at the time that we were starting this band, you're playing a lot more like straight ahead jazz during that time, and then like, but you also had your own band that was like sort of called You Are the Garden, which is a fantastic. I don't know if you checked out that
I have.
project, Paul.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, we played the same gig. Like my first. Yeah, Andy and I go back a little ways. But we played at the Mustache. That was like my one of my first gigs in town. It was
Oh,
definitely the first
whoa.
gig where I think where I played any compositions where I was on. Anyway, yeah, and that was
Wait, we were on the same, You Are the Garden was on the same gig as that?
yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I was
I
playing like
forgot
these
about
Mark
that.
Turner tunes and things, and yeah, yeah, it was that was beautiful. I mean, your show was amazing, and yeah, that was a it was actually it was a challenging gig for me. It was like I was struggling actually with some of the kind of authenticity stuff exactly that you were talking about on that particular night, but it really helped that there was the crowd was so full of acceptance and support
Oh,
and
yeah.
love. So yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, I know for me, like that Tortoise album TNT, when I first discovered that, I was probably like 19. I think I listened to it almost exclusively for like maybe 6 months. It was like it was all I listened to. I just listened to it over and over again. Um, yeah, and then I think a big influence for me nowadays too is like Natural Information Society, Joshua Abrams group.
I've
I
just
think,
been
Definitely.
hipped into them. Yes, just
oh
started
my gosh,
listening. Yeah,
incredible. And also
yeah.
Joshua Abrams is someone that has a huge history in the Chicago music scene and actually is on Sam Prekop's first album
Hmm.
playing bass.
Yeah, that record's so
And
cool.
this is little known. Joshua Abrams has a uh, I can't remember the name of it. I read it in an interview, a Jeff Parker interview that someone did. Um, he has like a hip hop instrumental project
Hmm.
that actually has a big connection to Natural Information Society. Natural Information Society is like it's a minimalism that actually comes out of like an interest in how hip hop beats are a form of minimalism. So like that is like a part of Natural Information Society, which is really cool to me. It's like I think he has that approach that we're inspired by. I know that's always been a huge inspiration for me. Is
Hmm.
is that like the Chicago music scene is like hugely influential on me. I think one of the best parts about the Chicago music scene, especially like the Chicago jazz scene, um, coming out of college and starting to go to jams, and especially the Whistler jam that Quinn and Matt run. Thankfully, they are doing it again. But pre-COVID, it was huge. It was like so influential. It was such a meeting point. And I just think the thing that they really cheered on was authenticity and being yourself and not being a shredding machine, but being a listener and that was what those are the virtues that they brought to that session and bring to that session. Sorry, it's still happening,
I
obviously.
know. Yeah.
But it's like I think that was huge in the way that that kind of like older generation compared to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not
like,
me.
but it's how they're so inspiring in that way that you just want to be a part of that.
Okay, I think I'm out of things to ask you all about. I mean, this has been beautiful. I sort of wanted to ask you, Andy, about the billiards thing, but maybe we can just talk about that. You mentioned on your website. All right. Talk for 5 seconds about the billiards.
Don't get him started.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
dude, you better
shit.
be
It's gonna be
Okay.
careful,
another
Paul.
hour.
Oh
You better be
no.
careful. No, okay, all I'll say, I'll keep it short, is that having a skill to practice that is concrete, you're either getting it right or you're not,
Hmm,
is really helpful. And the beautiful thing about pool is that it's imperfect and you're not expected to be perfect. The pocket is not the width of a ball. It
hmm,
has range.
hmm,
And the way that you practice pool is it's so complicated that all you can do is be present and train your subconscious. You actually can't try to there is frameworks for mentally understanding it, but it's feel based, like deep down.
huh.
Like and it's really interesting how the things that you learn to understand consciously, you have to let those filter into the feel rather than intellectualizing because it's so physical and so it's like it relates very deeply to music. I actually another really cool little fun fact is Ornette was a huge pool player, like obsessively. I've heard a story that if you went over to his loft to rehearse, the first thing you had to do was play him in a game of pool. Yeah, so
All right.
there's a deep connection between music and pool, in my
That's
opinion.
fascinating. You need to write an essay or a, you know, or have a music. But I mean,
Really should.
I can see this as a marketing possibility, frankly, as looks like improvisation and the art of pool or something like that. It's almost a clear vision. All right, guys. Well,
Well,
look, I really
use.
so much appreciate you spending all this time with me, and it's such a beautiful record. Congratulations again. I look forward to hearing you all, um, out on the scene, in the wild, as they say, sometime soon. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us.
Take it easy, guys. Bye.
See ya.